And being recorded, so anybody online, come time to give testimony, if you want to give testimony, please raise your hand on the Zoom call and, we can let you in.
Okay, it is Thursday, August 10th, 7:13 PM. This is the Mount Lebanon Zoning Hearing Board. Time and place to hear the continuance of appeal number 1855 for Patrick and Elizabeth Healy, 0 Castle Shannon Boulevard. In our possession, we have the cover sheet, the original cover sheet from the June 15th, 2023 packet. We have the official Mount Lebanon, Pennsylvania appeal notice, the application, information provided by the appellant in the packet, including color aerial maps and photographs, a copy of an invoice, we do have some email letters and from various residents of the municipality. We have color photographs provided by the appellant from last hearing, and we have color photographs provided by the municipality from the previous hearing. We have no new information in our packet that we did not have from the past June 15th hearing. So at this time, anybody that is wanting to give testimony, if you could please stand, raise your hand to be sworn in. Okay, now is the time for you to approach and present any new testimony for the board to consider. Just as a reminder, we do have all of the information provided from the June 15th hearing in our possession and in the record. So if you could please try to keep it towards new or updated testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. David Montgomery on behalf of the applicant, Patrick and Elizabeth Healy. As the board knows, we're challenging a letter of non-compliance from the municipality dated April 12th, 2023. And at the June hearing in this matter, we did present certain evidence and testimony asserting our position that the letter was improper because it cited the Healys for locating a trailer, a small green trailer and a boat on the subject property. And we objected to that letter on the ground that the use of the trailer and the boat on that site was a lawful non-conforming use. And the testimony at the June hearing also furthered the proposition that those uses are also protected as a vested right, given the municipality's continuing approval of that lot as a staging area. So tonight we had some very brief rebuttal testimony to the evidence that the municipality presented at the last hearing. So we'll try to tailor our evidence very briefly to the nature of that evidence and try not to be duplicative. So just have a couple of witnesses, and the first one would be a gentleman from Mount Lebanon named Michael Fuhrer. Mr. Fuhrer?
If you could please state your name and address for the court reporter.
Michael Fuhrer, 415 Castle Shannon Boulevard. 415 South Shannon Boulevard,
Spell your last name.
Fuhrer.
Thank you.
Spiro, thank you very much for appearing tonight. So you said your current address is 415 Castle Shannon Boulevard.
Yes,
How long have you lived at 415 Castle Shannon Boulevard?
60 years.
Is that been 60 years continuously?
Yes, I've never moved that.
Okay. And who is your mother?
Eileen Fuhrer.
And are you aware that your mother submitted a letter to the board?
Yes,
And it was submitted in support of this application?
yes.
Okay. And can you explain to the board where 415 Castle Shannon Boulevard is relative to the location of a green trailer across Castle Shannon Boulevard?
It's down a little bit for when you're on my property is right across the street.
Okay. It's
And down a
based-
little bit, just a little
Okay,
bit.
so you can see the green
Yeah.
trailer,
Yes, I can.
and are you aware that there's been a boat? that-
Yes,
Now, this woman over here is keeping a verbatim transcript. So you have to wait till I finish with my questions before you answer.
okay.
So we don't step
Yeah.
on each other's toes here. So, so you're aware of the green trailer,
Yes,
and is there a telephone pole in the area of the green trailer?
yes.
Okay, and so in the area of where the green trailer and the boat have been parked, can you tell the board what your recollection is of the use of that area of the parcel over the years?
Been probably close to 20 years. They've been using it. As far as I can remember,
For what purposes?
people parking there, construction sites use it.
And do you have a family members ever use that property?
My brother used to park his 18-wheeler over there. That was back in the early 2000s, I think.
The early two
I
thousands?
think, I'm not sure.
Okay, and just to make sure we're talking about the area in question, I want to make sure we're talking about the area where the green trailer and the boat have been parked.
He would have to turn the tractor around, so you have to be just part of that.
Okay, so would you say
Yeah.
right around area?
Yeah, I mean, parked by, close to where the post office people do.
Okay, and it's your recollection
Yeah.
that for at least 20 years, people have
Yeah.
been parking in that area as
Yeah.
well? Okay, that's all I had for you.
Right?
That's all I had. Mr. Fuhrer, the board may have questions.
You continue with your, if you continue with your testimony, we'll ask questions, when you're done.
Close?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fuhrer.
Do you have a question?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, actually,
we'll do these witness.
okay, sorry, if you could please approach back up, we'll ask questions after each witness.
Sorry, sir. So how long have you lived in that property?
60 years.
Oh.
My mother's been there 66, I've been there 60.
Okay, so since what would that be,
50 something. She
57?
lived there. I was born in 63.
So the property, you referenced the property that has the green trail
Yeah.
on it, right? So your testimony is that that property where the green trailer is, has been used for parking for how long?
I'm figuring it has to be at least 20. Of course, I can recollect
At least 20 years? So around 2003?
somewhere around there. You know,
Do you recall ever seeing vehicles parked? Imagine you're on your property and you're looking
Yeah.
at the property with the green trailer. Were there typically vehicles parked to the left of where the green trailer is?
I don't think so. I can't recall.
Were most of the cars parked to the right of where the green trailer is? If you can't recall, that's a perfectly acceptable answer.
Can't recall.
So you just recall generally there were
Yeah.
vehicles parked in that
Yes.
area.
And they, construction material. Been there too for a lot of years.
Do you ever recall seeing cars parked there before the early 2000s?
No, I can't remember.
I have no further questions.
That,
Thank
That
you.
it?
Mr. Campagnaro, do you have any
I
questions?
do not have any questions.
then, I just wanted to recall, Mr. Healy, for some testimony about some additional photographs. Mr. Healy? Okay. Copy this to the board.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Healy, can you identify this cover photograph to this packet that I've handed to the board?
It shows the post office.
Well, just identify the photograph. What kind of photograph is this?
It's a Google photograph.
Okay, and does it have the Google logo down in the
Yes.
corner? And if you squint, can you make out the date there is September 19th, 2024 or 2004?
Yes,
Okay, so this is a Google Earth image from that date?
yes.
Okay, all right. Now, this is an aerial view. Obviously, that's the post office.
Yes.
Can you tell me if there are any features in this photograph that'll help identify the subject property?
Subject property is, there's a telephone pole. That really is a kind of an easy way to see where
Let me,
what separates the
now,
lots.
we don't have the AV, but I do have this photograph that I can blow up your board to take a look at. So if you were to come over here, Mr. Healy.
Sure.
Can I direct you here? Once you stand there, and we'll face the board, and I want you to use your hand to point to where the telephone pole is. All right. Okay, that is the telephone pole. And is that telephone pole basically on the property line of the subject property? I believe so, yes. Okay. Are there any other features in this photograph that help orient the board to the subject property?
Counselor, I don't want to interrupt you, but it might be, if he could maybe mark up an exhibit, it's hard to see where exactly he's pointing. Maybe if he
Okay,
could mark
yes.
up his copy and show us.
That's a great idea. Who's that? This pen here? So what I want you to do, Mr. Healy, without, can you just draw a line from the border of this picture to where the, where you
Property
think
line
the base of the telephone pole, draw a single line and then we'll label it up at the top, telephone pole.
Okay.
Thank you. Here, here, let's make sure we got a pen that actually works. No, I don't, it might be too dense. Let's try this. So, this one does work. Okay, now. Thank you. Do you, Pat, can you see from here, can you draw a line up here and then label that as telephone pole? But very carefully, so you capture, you don't mark it.
So I'm not sure you want me to just draw a line straight through the property
Yes,
line, Mike?
and then and from that line, at the very top of the line, I want you to write telephone pole.
Okay.
See how this came out. Okay, there's, pardon me for a second, let me just confer with Rich, yeah, you drew another line.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was gonna put an arrow or something. Yeah.
Yeah, draw a line directly from where the base of that telephone pole
Okay,
is.
I'd maybe better
Yeah.
last. This one.
Yeah, it's hard to see.
Yeah, and your computer when you blow it up.
Yeah, it's very hard to see.
All right, so how's that? And that was like,
All right.
yeah. Smart.
All right, okay, so you've drawn a more solid line at the base of the telephone pole?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay,
yeah, I mean, it's-
All right, okay. And when we hand this, I'll hand this to the board to circulate to the board to see. But the other physical feature on here, can you draw an arrow to that physical feature as well?
For me,
And take your time.
it's the big tree there with where the flag's on.
Okay,
Like
it's a
that.
tree?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you draw a line from that tree to the border of the photograph and label that tree? Okay. Okay. Me. And this view, so. In any event. Okay, so from this 2004 photograph showing the location of that telephone pole and that tree,
Yes,
what does this tell you about the condition of the property in September of 2004?
that it's gravel, that section of saying
Okay, how much of the lot would you estimate is gravel?
a third.
Okay, and why do you say that?
It goes from telephone pole to telephone pole and it's like a third of it.
Your lot goes from the telephone pole, the next telephone pole down the street?
Pretty accurate, yes.
Okay, and your testimony is that the area under the tree appears to be open,
That's correct.
and the area under the tree on the other side of the tree is completely open,
That's correct.
right?
Yes,
And that appears to be either gravelled or paved,
yes,
and the area in front of the tree also appears to be open.
that's correct.
Okay, what is your testimony about how that area around that tree was being used in 2004?
Staging.
Okay, and is it your position before this board in this objection to that letter that the entire property should be used for off-site parking?
That's not what I'm here for.
What are you claiming?
I'm claiming that the section that's gravelled and was when I bought it and was being used when I bought it, that it stays the same. I'm not trying to cut anything down or make anything bigger. I'm not trying to add anything or do anything like that. Trying to keep it exactly the same and the same use it has always been. I grew up in this town and in Mount Lebanon, and it's always been like that. It's
All right.
always people always staging and parking stuff there.
Let me just run through some additional photographs. We won't dwell on these too long. The second photograph in this packet bears a date of October 8th, 2019. Is this your photograph?
Yes,
Okay, and there's the telephone pole we've been discussing.
yes,
Are these construction materials that were used as a staging area?
that's correct.
Okay, and this is around the time you purchased the lot, isn't it?
That's correct.
Were you aware of this activity when you purchased the lot?
Yes,
And did that play a role in your purchasing the lot?
yes.
And why?
You can charge money for people's.
Well, you gotta keep your voice up.
You can use it or charge people to stage there, which is Gillisec and Folino Construction. And a couple more, like Swank was there for a short period of time.
So it was valuable to you.
Yes,
The understanding the municipality was permitting this was valuable to you.
they had been permitting people to park and stage there for as long as I can remember.
Okay, and the next photograph is August 12th, 2020. Is that your photograph?
It is,
Okay. There's another photograph from August 30th, 2020. Is this your photograph?
that, yes,
And more construction materials?
that's correct.
That's on the subject property?
Yes,
Okay, there's an aerial photograph from November of 2021. This is a photograph that you produced.
that's correct.
Okay. The next photograph is June 18th, 2015.
Mhm.
Can you describe what's going on in this photograph?
The post office has their semi there that they're staging. And right corner is, construction material and stuff like that. And behind the semi is, gravel.
Okay, does this have anything to do with the subject property?
It's, the semi is actually, the cab is on the property and the gravel piles are on the property. And
What would you like the board to understand about this photograph and the use of the property back in 2015?
that, it was being used as a staging lot, even from the post office who, I never even had a lease with them. They've never had a lease with that property ever in the history of the property. And the post office has never had anything to do with anything outside their fence until they leased it to me. And that took a year, even after I went to see Mr. Sarver in his office and talked to him about the uses of that property. And I was explaining to him that the post office was on the property and other people were parking on the property. And he, in the end, Mr. Keith McGill came in and expressed that they can park there. And
Was Mr. McGill talking about the parcel we're discussing tonight, or was he talking about the post office property?
he was talking about, I don't know. He said, I own the post office property, not the post office. I call it the post office lot because that's who ended up leasing it from me. The construction company at that time, they were the only ones that were leasing. And the post office, probably 2017, I think I got a lease from them.
Okay.
2016.
Sorry, can you clarify?
Sorry.
Did you say that Keith McGill claimed that he owns the post office property?
No, Mr. McGill, I went to the post office and people were parking on the lot. And I didn't have a lease with anybody and they'd been doing it for years and I couldn't get anybody to leave or stop. So I went up to the office to talk to anybody about it and I talked to Mr. Sarver and Mr. Sarver, I was explaining to him what was going on and he suggested that I put a fence up and gave me a permit to do a fence. And then I told Mr. Sarver, what if I lease it? And then he got pretty upset and he said that.
Because I don't
I'm-
recall
I'd
any
like to finish.
conversation.
I'd like to
Well,
finish.
everybody will have a chance to give their
Please,
testimony.
I'd like to finish. So at that point, he said, no, I drive by that lot every day to and from work. He told me that. And then he said, I will fine you for every car that's on that lot every day. And then Mr. McGill, that's when he came into the office and sat down next to me. And that was in like 2015. And he said, Rodney, though, that's not accurate. If the post office leases the property, they can do what they want. And then Mr. Sarver said, okay, that's okay. And then that was where we left it. And it took another year for me to even get the lease from them. And the whole time they're parking everything there.
Okay, but how was that related to the property we're talking about tonight?
That the construction, the post office, and everybody had been using a lot of property.
How about the property we're talking about?
Right now, that picture of the semi is in the property.
Okay, so when you say all the property, you're talking about the subject property and the other parts.
That's correct. That's
Okay.
all the gravel area.
All right.
It's like all one lot.
Okay, the next photograph here is what? It shows a trailer of some sort.
Yes.
And whose trailer? This is a 2015 photograph.
Mhm.
Is this your photograph?
I believe, yes.
And what does this photograph depict from 2015?
I believe Felino Construction.
Was this one of these road construction
Yes,
projects?
Yes, one of the ones that. Mhm.
Okay,
That's correct.
and is that a job board next to?
Yes.
Okay. And the next photograph is also from 2015. Just to make sure we're all on the same page here, board members, this is a photograph I'm directing Mr. Healy's attention to at this point. And this is a photograph, street view from October 9th, 2015. And can you explain to the board what this street view photograph, October 9th, 2015 shows?
I was driving by and I would on occasion take pictures as I drove by.
And, okay, but what does the picture show?
That shows construction material, staging material behind some of the growth that's along the street
Okay, and on what parcel is this depicted?
on the parcel that we're here for. tonight.
Okay, the subject parcel of this hearing.
Yes,
Okay, and so you're saying you took this photograph
that's correct.
and this photograph was taken in 2015?
That's correct.
And this photograph shows construction material staged behind the foliage on this, from the street view.
That's correct.
Okay, and incidentally, why are you taking pictures in 2015 of a parcel that is adjacent to the one you own at the time?
I would just take them as I went by.
You were driving?
Yes.
Okay, you were taking a series of
Kind
photographs?
of like that.
Oh, you're just clicking the phone? Okay, and in the course of clicking the phone, you grab this image.
Yes.
Okay, and how would you explain to the board that you know this is the subject property and not a different property, not the property that the post office actually leases from you?
If you look, I think at the curb, one curb is higher than the other, and then where the post office leases, it's pretty level there. It's a lot more level. It doesn't start to really kick down a little bit until you get a little bit farther down, and those trees and things like that, they were never in the leased part from the post office. It never had any kind of foliage ever really.
Okay, so it's mainly the topography of the curb that.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, great. All right, and the next photographs we have,
Question on that
yeah,
photo.
sure.
Would you say that the green trailer is to the left or to the right of the photograph?
Yeah, if we were to look at this 2015 photograph, where would you say the construction materials are, looking at this photograph in relation to the final construction materials?
I believe that construction material would be almost where the trailer is, a little bit to the left. But right around there, maybe a little bit farther. It's a little bit farther down than when the trailer is. I think the telephone pole is to the right about maybe 8 feet, 10 feet. So right where the line is, that would probably be like almost. It's close to right there.
Thank you. And the next photographs we have in the exhibit, these are Google Earth photographs. These are from the Allegheny County website, and they show the parcel view. They're labeled as 2002. And just so for what it's worth, these are Google Earth images from 2002 and 2011. And although they don't have a Google Earth image on here, do they? Right?
That's right.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, as we're skipping ahead now to towards the end of your packet, there are pictures of where the boat and the green trailer are. You see that, Mr. Healy?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you explained to the board that you're not seeking permission to park off-site everywhere on this lot. Really, it's the footprint, the 1/3 of the lot that is, that's where the boat and the trailer are, that is currently gravelled and has historically been used for parking.
That's
Is
right.
that correct?
Yes, sir.
See, so really, this photograph of the boat and the green trailer represents that area of the parcel that you contend that you should have a lawful non-conforming right to park, and that the enforcement notice was therefore invalid.
That's correct.
Okay. And finally, I think, or I don't want to ever say finally, because I always lie. There's another close-up photograph of the boat, just to show you the gravel underneath the boat. And how long has that gravel been there?
I don't know, as long as I know.
Okay. And then there's another picture of boat and gravel. That's your photograph.
That's correct.
And then finally, there I go again. We've just attached correspondence from the municipality. And it's just an email from Mr. Sarver to me, where it's represented that a portion of the lot has been used as overflow parking for the post office employees now and in the past. So I think that's an important admission. And then finally, we have a letter attached to this packet from a real estate agent in the municipality. And I think this is from a woman named Helena Massoff, and I'm hoping the board has it in its materials. But I have a hard copy of this letter as well. And she's going through her understanding of the history based on 54 years that at least a portion of the property has been used as staging area for various purposes. So and I have a copy of that letter if the board, if I can hand it. This is from, another writer that I described. And so, Mr. Healy, we talked about your street view of 2015, showing the construction materials. Right?
Yes.
And so when we were here in June, the municipality introduced, street views from 2016. You recall that?
Yes.
And if you were to look at that street view from 2016, you would have seen dense foliage on the side of the road by the subject property. Correct?
Yes.
And just based on that photograph, you couldn't see behind that foliage.
No,
Okay, but your photograph from 2015 showed that there was actually construction activity behind that foliage.
that's correct.
Okay, and if that's your recollection throughout that period?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't have any other questions for Mr. Healy.
Mr. Scowen, do you have any questions for Mr. Healy?
I don't, no question.
I do not have any questions.
I have no questions at this time for Mr. Healy.
There, those are the exhibits I had, I'd like to enter those into the record. And that's all the testimony I had for tonight. So I appreciate the board's time and having us back and considering this additional and rebuttal evidence. I'm sorry, what? Pardon me. There should be, pardon me, yes, yeah, right, that's argument. Right, that's argument. So we have letters in the file from, I think, our last hearing from Gillespie Construction and Felino Construction describing their use of the property, at least from 2015 forward. And you've heard testimony from Mr. Healy tonight that one of the reasons he bought this property is because it was under heavy use, continuous use from 2015 onwards. And you heard from Mr. Sparnagel in June that the municipality was working with the construction companies in the course of the reconstruction of the roads that were being improved. So based on that, Mr. Healy had a good faith, reasonable belief that this additional parcel was also available for off-site parking and the staging of construction materials, just because this heavy construction equipment that had been on the site on and off since 2015. So that was a key reason for his purchase of the property. And I think under the case law, that would qualify as a ground for an estoppel argument here as well. When the municipalities made a representation or that would reasonably lead people to believe that property has been permitted for a particular use, it would be reasonable for someone to rely on that and expend money and purchase the property on that basis. So that's our vested rights argument. And we had begun in June talking about lawful non-conforming use. And so we have the testimony of Mr. Fuhrer, multiple letters in the file, and Mr. Kernan, a lifelong resident of the community, about their recollection of the property being used as a staging area going back decades. So with all that being said, we're asking the board to rule that the enforcement letter insofar, I guess the narrow question is whether the trailer and the boat are allowed to remain there as lawful non-conforming uses. And just to put a fine point on things, we're not asking the entire lot be declared to be a lawful off-site parking area. We're really only focused on that first third of the property or that area up until where the boat is parked is depicted in those photographs. But the rest of it we concede is, it's an overgrown lot, at least beyond the boat. So that's what we're asking the board to grant, to find in our favor. So I appreciate the board's consideration.
Okay, you have any questions, Mr. Scowen?
I have a question, Counselor, just about the relief, the specific relief that you're seeking here. I don't know if this is a question for you or Mr. Sarver. Typically, we hear requests for variances, and we grant or deny the variance. Here, there's a notice of violation. So what exactly are we deciding whether to strike or uphold?
That,
The
well,
violation?
that's Actually, I think that is the precise legal issue in front of you. We filed an appeal from an enforcement letter. So the narrow relief we would be asking for is just the board to say that particular letter, for the reasons we've developed here, should not be enforced. And I don't think you need to go any broader than that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions, Mr. Campanero?
I do not.
Is there anybody in the audience that would like to provide testimony? Okay, please approach. If you could, I guess, first off, confirm that you were sworn in the beginning and then provide your name and address.
So I'm Elizabeth Healy, and I'm at 731 Shady Lane. I'm one of the property owner. I'm sorry, I'm one of the property owner. I'm sorry, I'm very nervous. English is not my first language. I just want to apologize in advance. Just tell me if you don't understand anything I say. I just wanted to say that my husband and I, we moved here. He's from Mount Lebanon, I'm from France. We always follow the rules. When we got the first lot, the one that's next to the post office, we made sure that we were complying, and we went to ask if that was permitted, and we got a lease from them. And then we saw construction companies, and my husband regularly checked his lot, the lot. He got to talk to those people, and they had informed him that they were authorized to stage things on the property. And the property is not, it's not like there's a line. It just extended a bit. So it's just the way it's been. So when we saw that the second lot that's farther away from the post office was for sale, we knew that they had been allowed to stage there. So when we purchased it, we made sure that the construction company requested permission before they staged it there. Based on that, we didn't know what else to do. I mean, we thought that we had complete authorization to do this. We rely on this, and we believe that we did everything we could to make sure that we are following the rules. So now, after all this staging, I mean, the picture shows staging of huge equipment from large companies. I mean, PJ Dix, companies like that, staging like, I don't know, backhoes and things, excavators, and things like that. And then there's this little trailer. It's my company. It's my female-owned pest control company. All of a sudden, that's not allowed. For me, it's like, I don't know why everything else was fine, but this little trailer, it's not. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to offer testimony? Approach. If you can confirm that you were sworn in and state your name and address.
Teresa Bradley, 411 Castle Shannon Boulevard. I live directly across the street.
You were in earlier.
No.
Can you read that to me about the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I've been there for about 27 years. And the lot has changed over the years. And, you know, when I purchased my house, there was a lot of foliage over there. There were cars that parked from the post office, but not nearly as many that park there now. I mean, there might have been 10 cars on the lot. There are many more cars now. And I look out my front window and I see piles of concrete, piles of stones, many, many, many cars. And I'm not against the green trailer. But when I bought my house, I didn't buy it to have storage across the street. My neighbors on either side have been there 50 or more years. And I know things change, but and now that Duquesne Light cut down all of our trees, there's even a better view of the concrete and the stones and the cars. I'm not upset. I'm just letting you know that's my view now. And that's not what I bought when I bought my property. So, I'm not happy, needless to say. And I know there isn't much we can do about Duquesne Light, but, it's even worse now. It's worse. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention and, thank you very much. Teresa, Teresa, Bradley, Bradley, and I'm at 411 Castle Shannon Boulevard.
Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to provide testimony? Mr. Sarver, is there anybody online that would like to provide testimony?
If so, can you please raise your hand? Only one attendee and they are not raising their hand.
Okay, at this time, Mr. Sarver, would you please provide the municipality's stance?
The municipality's stance is basically that the enforcement notice was issued due to the fact that from the evidence that we submitted from Common Knowledge Street View, Google Street View, and from our GIS system that I also presented, that before 2019, that lot was significantly wooded. Therefore, any use of parking of trailers or any parking of any type is not a continuation of a non-conforming use, because I don't believe any evidence has been submitted to prove that the use was there before the ordinance did not allow it to be there, to be concentrated a non-conforming use. So we wrote it up under the violation notice. If you look at the application, the violation notice doesn't address non-conforming use. It addresses that it's a violation of section 817.1. And it says no vehicle in any district shall be parked off-street at any time except on an authorized parking lot, parking area, or driveway. So that's what the violation states. We did not issue any permits for any parking lots, parking areas, or driveways for that property. So therefore, we wrote the violation notice, again, because of the trailer and the trailers parked on the property. Again, we submitted evidence with the GIS. The Healy's presented evidence showing the GIS. Well, they asked for a GIS, but they show it in their application. The last page of their application is from the GIS map. And you can see by that image on their application that that lot is wooded. The lot between this lot and the post office does have gravel on it and has been used, as Mr. Montgomery said in the email that I sent regarding, because we had initially wrote the lot next to the post office a violation notice for parking of the trailers. And that's when we discovered the error, that it was the different property. And therefore we corrected it. And I sent that email that he had just enclosed in his most recent package. Basically stating that there is evidence that there was overflow employee parking for the post office from what I had seen in my research on looking through Google Street View, because it seems like there was cars parked there. Recently, I know that the post office, I believe, is doing some work at the post office. And I don't know if if some of the more overflow that the resident addressed is from that because they're using their construction equipment in the rear where the employees should park. Typically, post office don't have enough parking. You know, they usually swap out the post office vehicles for the employee vehicles, but that doesn't always happen. So, you know, it's our, as the as the zoning officer who is in charge of enforcing the zoning office, the zoning ordinance, you know, we sent a violation notice stating that it's a violation because there's no parking lot or driveway permitted. I have not been submitted to my office any information showing that the use, any non-conforming use was established prior to any date that said that it could not be there without approval. We, the municipality, have no knowledge of any written or verbal approval to any company to use that lot for staging or parking area. There was evidence tonight about a meeting in my office, and it was stated that that meeting was in 2015. I wasn't even employed with the municipality in 2015. So I take offense to the fact that somebody's arguing that they told me something in my office that didn't exist whenever the meeting supposedly happened. We have no evidence whatsoever that shows that the municipality gave permission. PennDOT did some work down there years ago because Castle Shannon is a PennDOT road. So maybe they and their contractor for that road asked permission to stage there, but we, the municipality, have not given any permission to use that as a staging area or to have any type of use without any permits. It was also stated that there was a fence permit issued for this lot. There is no permits in the record for a fence for this lot. So again, if you read the definition of non-conforming use under the zoning ordinance, which basically says that the use, whether land or of structure which does not comply with the applicable use provisions of this chapter or amended theretofore or thereafter enacted, and where such use is lawfully in existence prior to the enactment of this chapter or an amendment or prior to the application of this chapter or amendment in its location by reasons of annexation. So again, I haven't seen any evidence to show that this property is being used for parking prior to the ordinance saying that it can't be used under parking for that section that we wrote the violation under, which is 817.1. And that's where the municipality stands.
Mr. Scowen, any questions for the municipality?
Mr. Sarver, I believe at the last hearing, you said that section 817.1 was enacted in 2005. Is that right?
To the current, it wasn't enacted, that section per se was, that particular section was the same section as it is now today, was actually put into effect as that section in 2005. Prior to that, there are regulations dealing with parking, but they're under different sections because the zoning ordinance was rearranged in 2005. So that's when that section 817.1 was created.
Do you agree? I asked counsel what the particular relief being sought here is, and he said we are deciding whether to strike or uphold the violation. Do you agree with that?
I mean, you have to follow whatever's in the MPC. They have the right to file an appeal for a decision of the zoning officer. So whether or not that's what the intent is to file an appeal from a decision, it's we determining that it's a violation. Again, the notice isn't an appeal or a violation notice saying that they're continuing a non-conforming use, or they're using a use that isn't legal non-conforming. The violation notice is for parking on a lot that never was issued a permit for a parking lot, driveway, or parking area.
I guess my question though is tonight, we're deciding whether to strike or uphold that violation. Is that your understanding?
My understanding and based on the application is that they were they were filing an appeal for the municipal action of the notice of violation.
They have no further questions.
Mr. Campanaro?
I have no questions. So,
I don't want to belabor the issues of nomenclature of evidence, but we put on testimony about the use of the lot. So that would constitute evidence and then supplemented by the letters from the construction companies. There was, it's undisputed, there was heavy usage of this property by the construction companies, at least from 2015 onwards. We've had oral testimony from witnesses that the parking, at least on a portion of the lot, pre-existed 2005. And we have photographs that show that at least a portion of the lot was clear for parking predating 2005. So that's the gist of our argument. It just defies logic that the municipality was not permitting the construction activities on this lot when Polino and Gilisick have both submitted letters saying that occurred, and you've heard live testimony to that effect as well.
You stated that section 817 was put into effect in 2005. And that's essentially when the zoning ordinance was rearranged. Are you knowledgeable, or can you speak on the type of parking ordinances prior to 2005 that were in effect?
I did not do research to go back to see how far back, but we did look at some old zoning ordinances that prohibited, basically had the same general language as section 817.1. But it was labeled obviously as a different section. So that's why we did research to basically determine when this section, because this section is the one that was being appealed based on the zoning, or based on the zoning violation notice, because that's what the zoning violation notice was for, that section. We wanted to find out when that section was created. And that's when we realized that that section was created in 2005 with the rearrangement of the zoning ordinance. But prior to 2005, there were numerous sections in there dealing with no parking on a vacant lot.
That same general language as in section 817, do you recall what effective date on the ordinance was at that, from the, I guess, the different section number with the same general language?
I vaguely remember going back into the 70s.
Mr. Rother, I guess I'll have to object because I feel like the goalposts are being moved now. We were told in June, at the June meeting, that the operative date was 2005, and that's how we prepared tonight. And now we're being told, well, maybe it goes back into the 1970s without being shown anything. I think the target we should all be focused on is the section that's actually cited in the letter from the municipality. That's the ordinance that was cited in the letter, and that's the ordinance that we had to challenge. And if they wanted to bring something else in, I think it's at a certain point, since they're in control of their own information, they have the burden of coming in and saying, actually, here's the ordinance, but they didn't do that. So I don't think it's appropriate for them tonight to say, well, maybe it's the 1970s, after hearing all of our entire case.
One more question from me. In the email, provided by council in the packet today. It's dated Thursday, March 23rd, 2023. You say, Mr. Montgomery, I have received and reviewed your letter and the November of 2020 Google Street View image and have the following comments. I would agree that a portion of this lot has been used as an overflow parking lot for the post office. Do you recall this lot as the subject parcel that we're talking about today or a different lot?
This was referring to parcel that is to the, if you're standing on Castle Shannon Boulevard, this is the parcel to the right of that, which is the gravel lot next to the post office. Well, it's next to the right of way, which is between, there's a paper street between the post office and the gravel lot. And this email was referencing that first gravel lot. That first lot off of the right of way.
I agree with that. Okay. I think it was referring to the first letter that was sent out. Turned out to be about the wrong lot, and then that brought us to the lot we're talking about.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. No further questions for me. Did any of my questions spur any questions for you, Mr. Scallon?
The only question I have, Counselor, I know you mentioned in the last hearing, we talked about the right to know request. You were waiting for materials from the right to know request. Did you eventually get a response to the right to know request?
We did. We're satisfied.
Did the response to the right to know request contain any historical versions of the code provision at issue? Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Mr. Campanero?
No questions.
I have no further questions. At this time, we will go off the record and enter our executive session.
You made good time then.
Hard to get here. Oh, wait, Hillendale, I think it's South Park. It is Everest, Fairgrounds, I guess. It's called
Yeah.
forever. That's it.
This is still being recorded, that's why I said. What is your phone number?
412-965.
Thank you.
That's myself.
Victoria. We call her Tori. So, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited. They're still down at, the hospital though, at McGee. I guess until they can be released because they're so tiny. I think they have to, like, they're monitored 24/7, so. Yeah. Yes, I think they have to, like, they didn't count, because I don't think they must give them. But, yeah, so, I think that somebody said something, they have to have like 5 consecutive days where there's no, like, irregularities, and they have to be eating like bottle or breast. Yeah, she's the one that said. Yeah. They're so tiny though, I was like afraid to even touch them, That's what they're so long and like skinny. My son-in-law said yesterday that they're in the NICU, and they have them like in incubators now, but they can get them on. But he said there's like a 1 pound baby down there. I just can't imagine that. That's so small. That's what everybody says. Yeah, they're being that small. Whitehall. Whitehall. Yeah. You know where Castee Village is? Like between here and 51 is where Whitehall is. Yeah.
Okay, at this time, we will go back on the record. Mr. Scour, are you prepared to vote?
Yes, I am. I find that 1/3 of the lot qualifies as a non-conforming use as a parking lot and therefore vote to strike the violation.
Mr. Campanero,
I concur that 1/3 of the lot qualifies as a non-conforming use and vote to strike the violation.
as do I. Okay, that concludes this hearing. I guess Mr. Sarver. Normally we would provide an approval or something. I don't know if we provide anything.
I can check with the solicitor to see, what happens. So just so I'm clear, so the vote was basically to declare that 1/3 of the lot was non-conforming for
A parking lot.
Parking
for
lot,
parking.
for a parking lot.
And to strike the violation notice for under the section that it was written under,
Correct. Yes,
which is 817.1.
correct.
And that's the only section? Being that that's the violation notice, correct?
Correct.
I would say you fill out the short form and then just sign it with that conditions. And then we'll just leave it at that, and that way they can get a copy of it. Okay?
All right, okay, we hereby adjourn. Thank you.